Photosynthesis is the process of using sunlight to synthesize foods from carbon dioxide and water. Most of the time, this is done by chlorophyll within the organism, which is usually what makes plants green. And yes, usually it is plants, fungi, and algae that use photosynthesis. But what if I told you there are also animals that use photosynthesis? Hey guys, it's Ollie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. And on this week's episode of Exploring Exotics, we will be going through 4 animals that photosynthesize, all the way from a slug that steals, a tiny insect that swaps, to a solar salamander and an electric hornet. So let's start out with an odd marine creature that's roughly the size of a lemon and could be mistaken for a leaf at first glance. Meet Alasia chlorotica, more commonly known as the eastern emerald sea slug or the leaf slug. And as its name suggests, it is a sea slug. And these sea slugs are found along the eastern coast of the United States. So let's talk about how exactly they do the whole photosynthesizing thing. So these sea slugs will actually start as veliger larvae, which means that they will settle on the bottom of the water body until they metamorphosize. And after they go through metamorphosis into juveniles, they will have a brown appearance with some red spots towards the top of their body. Alasia chlorotica will also only metamorphosize into its adult phase after eating a yellow-green algae called V. latoria. This makes the relationship between the slug and the algae obligate, meaning that one of them needs the other to complete its life cycle. After consumption, the color of the slug and the morphology of the slug will change. This is because as the algae is digested by the slug will actually absorb the chloroplast into its digestive tract. This phenomena is called phagocytosis. The presence of this chloroplast will also change the slug into a bright green color. The act of stealing the genes is called kleptoplasty. And of course, they are on this list, so these slugs will actually use these genes to photosynthesize. Living up to their leafy appearance, the slug will actually frill out on the water's surface and will use the stolen chloroplast to collect some of the sun's energy, and then convert it to their own energy just like plants do, to produce carbohydrates and lipids that'll last itself up to 9 months. So how exactly do they steal these chloroplasts? That's the upsetting part. We don't really know yet. But we do know that as we study this, the knowledge we gain from these slugs can actually help aid in the treatment of genetic diseases. Our next animal on this list is also an invertebrate. This is the acrethosiphon, more commonly known as the pea aphid. Aphids are small, soft-bodied, sap-sucking insects that are roughly the size of a pinhead and are found all over the world. The pea aphid differ from the rest of the aphids by being able to, of course, photosynthesize. Pea aphids come in 3 different colors, which vary based solely on its environment and conditions. They can come in white and translucent to orange to green. The green variety are typically found in cold environments, and they make more ATP than their white counterparts, while the orange aphids are found in more optimal environments and make a moderate amount of ATP, although they are known to make more ATP when exposed to sunlight. The white aphids, on the other hand, are usually translucent and have very little pigment. They are usually found in large populations with very limited resources. We will come back to the ATP and why that is important for the photosynthesizing here in just a moment. But before we get into that, we have to talk about how they are able to photosynthesize. Pea aphids contain the fungal gene that produces carotenoids. Carotenoids are chemical compounds that plants, fungi, and algae use to aid in photosynthesis. They essentially help the organism absorb more light to convert into more energy. Previous research found that they got this ability by swapping genes with fungi. This is known as a gene transfer. And new studies suggest that these carotenoids might be behind the aphid's ability to photosynthesize. Now back to ATP. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. It is the same energy-storing molecule that plants create during photosynthesis, and is a thing that we make when we metabolize our food. So now scientists know how pea aphids are making carotenoids, but not why. After all, these pigments do take a lot of energy to make, so why should they even bother with it? The leading hypothesis is that it is an energy backup, sort of like a rainy day fund. Which makes sense since the green aphid, which makes more ATP, is found in colder environments and therefore needs more energy to thermoregulate. But of course, just like every other animal on this list, it is a mystery of why and how exactly this came about. These are just hypotheses, but as long as we keep researching it, we will eventually find the answers. So let's go ahead and move on to our third animal, which is my personal favorite. Meet Ambystoma maculatum, better known as the yellow-spotted salamander. These creatures are very commonly found in the eastern United States and Canada, and are the only vertebrate known to photosynthesize. In 2010, researchers discovered that these salamanders actually have algae in their cells that contain chlorophyll. The algae in these cells are all over the salamander's body and have even been found to help nearby cells. Very little is still known of how exactly this relationship came about. It's extremely rare for a vertebrate to get a relationship like this, since most vertebrates' immune systems destroy things that try to live in their cells. But of course, there are exceptions to every rule, and this is one of them. So let's talk about what we do know. We know that this starts in the egg. Spotted salamanders will only lay their eggs in ponds without fish. This is done to avoid the eggs or the larvae from getting eaten. However, the problem is that those ponds don't usually contain a ton of oxygen, since they are lacking fish. So the problem is solved with algae. The algae will enter the embryo's body once the nervous system is first formed. This will even give the eggs a green pigment. Inside, the embryo will release waste that is rich in nitrogen, which feeds the algae. And in return, the algae will provide oxygen and carbohydrates directly to the cells that they reside in. And once the algae is inside of the salamander embryo's cells, it will stay near the mitochondria. From this point on, the algae and the salamander will live the rest of the salamander's life in this symbiotic relationship. The algae has also been found in the female's oviducts. Because of this, it is possible that the algae is getting passed down by the mother, by the algae actually entering the eggs in the oviduct. IU biologist Roger Hangarter said, "This raises the possibility that more animal-algae symbiosis exists that we are not aware of." And I don't know about you guys, but I really can't wait to learn more about vertebrates possibly being able to photosynthesize. And now on to our final animal. We are back onto invertebrates with Vespa orientalis, also known as the Oriental Hornet. These hornets can be found in Southwest Asia, Northeast Africa, the island of Madagascar, although no reports have been made of its presence in many years, the Middle East, Central Asia, and parts of Southern Europe. They have also been found in a few isolated locations in Mexico and Chile due to human introduction. And it's in this video, so of course it photosynthesizes. But it's a little bit different. These hornets contain xanthoperin in their yellow bands. They use this to absorb sunlight and convert it into electricity. Their exoskeleton will trap the sunlight, and as the photons reaches the yellow pigment, electricity will build. Scientists have also found that the outer brown layer is covered in grooves that help trap the light. These allow the sun's rays to funnel inward for better absorption. The outer yellow layer is covered in oval-shaped bumps that increase the surface area, again for absorption. And there is a voltage in between the yellow stripes layers that increases in light. In contrast, the electricity decreases in dark environments, which means that it is conserving energy. This energy is more than likely used for physical activities such as flying or digging or even thermoregulation. It also seems to be very important for the development of pupa. And of course, these are all hypotheses at the moment, and I don't have much to share about this final animal. This is still a relatively new thing that people are studying, so there's really not a ton of information out there on this hornet, but I did want to add it on the list for its unique properties. And that is pretty much all I have for you guys this week. I know that we only scratched the surface on these animals, and I am so sorry if you are disappointed in that. There's just not a ton to talk about, but I think that it is something that we should all keep in mind so that the research continues as we stay curious. So this is where I'm going to leave you. Don't forget to like this video for the algorithm. Comment down below if there are any other photosynthesizing animals that you want me to go on maybe in the future. All of my links, including my Instagram account, my art Instagram account, my Facebook group, my wife and I's Etsy, and most importantly, the sources I used in today's video will be down in the description below. And as always, subscribe to this channel if you are into this kind of content or really any animal kind of content. I upload every single Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, but you can hit the bell if you don't want to remember that. And as always, I will see you guys next week. Bye.